Ahoy there, I'm TinyPirate and I'd like to talk to you today about the news that Satisfactory will no longer be available on the Steam store and is now going to be sold exclusively, at least for now, through the Epic Store when it does release. So this news broke a few days ago and it kind of lit up Satisfactory Reddit, I know, and so if I search for Epic you can see that, well, other than a jokey epic amount of alpha keys here, there's a lot of people talking about it, people reposting articles saying that the Epic Store is bad, people speculating as to why they moved to the Epic Store, why are people angry about it, and all this kind of stuff. And I think everyone here is basically missing some really important points about why the Epic Store has been chosen by the team at Coffee Stain. Some of these are just going to be speculation on my behalf, and some of them are backed up by, well, just stats and information you can look up. So before I address a few complaints that I've read in here, I do want to say one thing, and that is if you are someone like this chap from India, and you can't handle international transactions, that really sucks, and that is a real shame. Maybe someone else can help tee you up if you can move some money around. You know, I don't know, but anyway, that is a real shame. Can't do much about that. I think someone else from Argentina was also saying that they couldn't buy the game for various reasons. There are some people who have other issues where they just can't access the Epic Store. So that's a real shame. But I want to look at some of the other reasons why people are complaining and sort of talk about why I think they've missed the point. So one of the first things people talk about is the size and scope of the number of players on Steam. So there are a few places you can see stats on this. Steam charts is one. Steam actually does have its own stats, and so you can see that they're peaking at around 16 million users on the weekend, which is great. That's a lot of players, and everyone would think, yeah, that's a lot of players. Why would you give up that market? Even though the Epic Store does have access to a lot of players who play Fortnite, that's a huge market. But this market I don't think is as big as you would expect. So if you look here, most people are playing these top three games here. They're playing PlayerUnknown's Battleground, which is massive in China, by the way. Dota 2, also big in China. And they're playing CSGO Global Offensive, and I think that's because of the new Battle Royale mode they released. But you count this up. Other than being very pleased to see New Zealand develop game Path of Exile in here, that is the lion's share of the top 10. That is a massive number. It's probably like 80%. I'm just trying to eyeball it. Possibly even more of the players on Steam are playing those three games. They don't seem like the kind of players who would move around. Now, you can argue whether or not the Fortnite players would move around, but one thing I will say is the Epic Store doesn't give them many options right now. They can see Fortnite every day when they log in. 8.3 million concurrent users of them, across all platforms, of course. We don't know the breakdown for PC. And then they might see some prompts for a few other games, and one of them is going to be, or is, Satisfactory. Whereas here, yeah, that's a lot of players who aren't potentially available. And it kind of gets worse than that. It's kind of interesting. So the global traffic map, China is absolutely massive. And you can see in here that Asia, the peak terabyte use in Asia is huge. And it gets even more interesting when you break out usage by language. So between simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese, that's like 25% of Steam users are using set the Chinese language. And that's not even really counting those who may be running in English just because they're a bit more capable with English or find it easier to run an OS in English. But let's just say that 25% is right. So that's, again, your 16 million concurrent users is actually more like 12 million. You cannot access these gamers very easily from the West. You just can't. There's a various long list of reasons why. Mostly things around you have to get games approved by the state to be able to release them on Steam in China and sell to Chinese people. So let's just assume, for argument's sake, those gamers are basically unavailable to the developers. So the 16 million concurrent drops to 12 million max concurrent at any one time, compared to 8.3 million peak concurrent that we've heard about with Fortnite. Yes, that's a difference, but there are plenty of other reasons why developers are thinking about moving to Epic, and there's some really good ones I'm just going to show you now. The first is how many games are released a day on Steam. So on the 11th of December, which is today my time, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I'm on page 3 and I'm somewhere over 40 games. I'm not even sure how many. I gave up counting. So that's more than 40 games in a single day you have to compete with. And when you browse the Steam store, anything down here, you know, stuff just here just doesn't get released. Yes, there's DLC, so I could probably cut that out. But here's the other issue. The Steam store is not exactly the most friendly. So I've cut it down to just game releases, and we're still on, is it 2 pages of games? And I'm guessing that these are actually, this is coming out. So these have been announced, they're not actually released. These ones are released. So yeah, we're still on like 2, maybe up to 3, no, 2 pages. 2 pages of games, that's just without DLC. That is enormous. So any developer trying to compete with that, I don't envy them. I mean, it's tough. I don't think people understand how important it is to be right here in the middle of this page. And then you've got these, which are a variety of some of the more popular games. I mean, already these are top 10 games, and you're not making it, and definitely the train simulators are, and your brand new game has to somehow make it up into here. Of course, some of this is recommended, although I'm not logged in, so it is the standard default recommendations. Special offers. Browse Steam, suggested, popular, and now we're down to new and trending. So down here, somewhere way below the cut, and if you know anything about UI, you know how many people ever scroll this far down. Somewhere below the cut here are actually new things. And in amongst all of your stuff, you're caught up, well, oh heck, I'm going to have to censor my own video now for that bloomin' mouse over. Thank you. I'm not even going to say that word because I did it again. I shouldn't have done that. Now I'm just making extra work for myself. So yeah, you're competing with stuff like that, which sucks. And not all of these are even new. Some of these are older games. So this is what developers are competing against. And the result of this is developers are actually pretty unhappy with Steam. I don't know if all the gamers know this, but they are. And I want to show something here from Lars Doucette on Twitter. He did a quick survey. I'll try and chuck it in the description below if I don't completely forget. And here is the information that he shared. So in the past, people thought that yes, Valve earned their 30%. That's right, they take 30% of the price. That's for them alone. That is, you just have to hand it over. And if you're running one of Epic's games using Unreal Engine, then you need to hand over, I have got that right, it is Epic and Unreal, I'd be silly if I got it wrong. Then you have to hand over another 5%. And that's fine if you're selling a commercial game, I suppose. But when you compare that to what Epic offer if you launch with them, very, very different. So in the past, people liked Steam. Developers now, 70%, nearly 70% do not think Steam is earning their 30%. And let's have a look at some other stats down here. So it's kind of interesting. The reason they're not interested or don't think they're working very well is because of this thing. There's a few things. So the October bug is a big one. So there is some evidence that there was a bug found in October and it just killed the revenue of some developers. It took 2 months for Valve to fix it, during which a few game devs said that they basically, I think you can just watch, dead. A few game devs were losing essentially thousands of dollars a week. And for little game devs, which, you'd think Valve would want to support, that's a massive number. That is frustrating as all heck. The other thing is that they have changed their revenue share scheme, and the Satisfactory devs said that was, that news came out after they decided to switch and wouldn't have changed their mind anyway. But yeah, here you go. They're changing their revenue share, but only for games that launch a lot. Big games, everyone else is still paying 30%. So yeah, they would keep everything, and now they're going to drop that so that bigger developers will earn more. And you can't help but think this news has come fairly late, and it's come as Epic has launched their own store and are encouraging developers to join. They are looking at offering 88% of revenue back to developers. That's massive, and that page has just fallen over. So that is quite a difference. 88%, so that's 12% cut, including the take for the engine that they use, compared to 30% plus 5%. So developers are essentially losing out big time if they can stick with Steam and get the same number of sales. Anyway, Lars ran a survey, and one of the interesting things was he got a really good spread of developers and their money and issues they had. But here are some of the really interesting things. Issues they faced. Dealing with toxic users. I'm sure many of you have seen what the communities can be like on Steam games. They can just be terrible, right? Just really, really toxic. Why would a dev want to spend time handling that? You know, that's time they're not spending with customers who actually care about their work. They're just dealing with trolls. So better, fairer revenue share, that's massive. That's what developers are worrying about. Better relationship with customer. This was kind of surprising to me. You can face, as say, a million revenue game, and I think he's got the stats down here. You can have no attention from Steam at all. Like, you can have no one to talk to somewhere here. Like, here you go. People who know and never have had any contact or currently haven't used or been able to get hold of anyone in Valve. The blue dots are people with big revenue, and so obviously some of the really big fish, or many of the really big fish, have a contact at Valve, but many don't. I, as a very small YouTuber, I can actually mail someone at YouTube and not too unreliably get a reply, believe it or not. And this is a company, Valve is a company that's extremely rich. So back in 2011, I think Lars repeats it in here, back in 2011, Valve was rated as one of the most profitable companies per employee in the world. They were making $350,000 profit per employee. And although they have scaled their customer support and their developer support, they haven't done it enough to be able to guarantee that a dev that is making them a lot of money, $1 million revenue company or game is delivering them $300,000. They can't be bothered to give them a contact to get hold of anyone. That kind of sucks. So yeah, you can see how developers would get very frustrated. They're dealing with these kind of problems and they can't even get a hold of anyone at Valve to talk about it. They're trying to raise problems with the algorithm that's broken. They can't get hold of anyone to talk about it, and it takes Valve 2 months to reply. Then there's issues around the curation. So, the Steam store itself. It kind of sucks. You can get so much bad shovelware, as I'm sure many of you know. And if you watch any of the videos from some of the big guys like Jim Sterling, he often goes through and just points out the terrible shovelware. And it takes massive publicity for these terrible developers who are flipping assets and just cheating gamers to actually get pushed off Steam. Steam does not seem to have paid a lot of attention to this. Algorithm, transparency from Valve. So these two are tied, really. If the algorithm's going to change suddenly, your business plan that you've got a loan off the bank for may suddenly prove to not work anymore. You were planning, based on prior history of your games, to sell X. The algorithm changes, Valve ignore the fact that it's changed or don't talk to anyone about it, and now you're not selling that much. Your house, you may lose it, while Valve are taking 30% of what you do make. Yeah. So you can see how that can lead to some very frustrated developers. So in general, people are becoming more and more unhappy with Valve. They know that they're taking 30%. They know they're an extremely wealthy company, but they also don't see them making the kind of changes that you'd expect from a company that is trying to support developers or even trying to support customers. And I think this is where a lot of people are making a lot of mistakes. They're seeing Valve and Steam as being this kind of wonderful, perfect little client, and it does everything well, but I really don't think it does. People are already thinking about moving, and I'm going to talk about Steam Client a bit more in a second, but people are already thinking of moving to other stores. So Epic is really for the big devs, as you'll see, but many people are wanting to move onto itch or to co-sell on others. So yeah, when you look at here of already signed agreements to put games on the following stores. So Epic, as you can see, is soaking up bigger publishers. I'd say the sort of, not the AAA, then definitely the BBB publishers, and I guess people like Coffee Stain. And as far as we can tell, they're being encouraged to launch on on Epic, with some pretty attractive deals. And why wouldn't they want to accept that if the offers were good? One of the things I find kind of annoying about the Steam whole interface is the workshop. So let's have a look here at the Don't Starve workshop, just for the kind of mods that are out there. You can get a lot of, like, I'm looking at Don't Starve here, and I don't really have a lot of control. There's a lot of there's Chinese language supported mods there. So let's just go across to like most popular in the last like 3 months. Why can I not like specify by language? I've got a lot of stuff in here I'm gonna have to sift through. This is kind of more of a minor complaint, I guess, but I found generally the workshop to be just, it feels old. It feels early 2000s, and it doesn't feel like Steam have put any effort in making this whole community hub experience decent. Like, they've kind of plopped it out there and then left it. It doesn't really encourage, to me, a lot of good curation and support around mods, you pretty much have to go and look up on another forum, like on Reddit or a forum, and find out what the good mods are, then come back to Steam and search for them, because otherwise you're just dealing with, I don't know, like, look at this. You can't really find anything you can instantly assess as being perhaps useful or valuable. So let's compare Steam to the Epic Games launcher. If I'm launching that now, then you'll see it only takes a few seconds. It is right now quite a lot quicker than Steam to come back to life. And in a few seconds it's here, and I can just go to the library and I can play Fortnite if I want. Yay, and that's good times. It's pretty quick and prompt, and what I also like about it is I have no friends. Oh, so sad. It's a very modern and fast looking client. If I hop across to the store, you know, they're offering pretty nice little attractive items for people. So to get people into it, look, you can come and play Subnautica free for a few days, which is great, for 2 weeks actually. And then other games are launched, and the store is not very big right now. So, you know, there's not a lot of competition here. And if you were a dev, wouldn't this store be attractive to you? Just scrolling through it, it aesthetically appeals compared to Steam. And yeah, that is a nice thing. And there are some mention of editor here, mod editors. So they're trying to put that front and center, which is great. I've got this all editor builder straight into the Epic Games launcher. I can imagine that will make potentially developing and publishing mods very easy in future. And of course, this is all speculation, but I could see why they would perhaps, that would be a pretty cool thing for someone to do, and a pretty attractive feature for any dev who was working in Unreal Engine, because they get to offer modability very easily. And modability and sharing of mods could be a thing that comes very quickly. So if we come across and look at Satisfactory in here, you know, fine, nice simple storefront, and probably a sign up for alpha button right there. Cool. And so I think the store is, I don't know, I like it. I think it's pretty fine. And I can see the appeal. So the appeal is 8.3 million max concurrent users. It's a store which isn't cluttered. It's 12% maximum that Unreal or Epic are going to take for use of the Unreal Engine and for sales, compared to a total of 35% that they face being charged for launching on Steam. I mean, that alone is just massive. I don't think people should underestimate that. And you know, everyone out there wants the Satisfactory devs to do well. They want them to have customizable maps. They want them to support mods. They want a lot of stuff. And the Satisfactory devs, Coffee Stain, have been quite careful, I think. They're being very cautious. They're not promising the world. And they're out there saying, yes, you know, we're going to offer you a great game and a lot of other things we're not going to promise you straight away. They're not going to promise, you know, a lot of fancy mod support, extra map generation, all kinds of stuff like that. They're going to promise that one day maybe. And frankly, if we want those things, then we owe it to Coffee Stain to give them a chance on Epic Games Launcher. As for the client itself, you know, I think it's fine. It launches quickly. I don't leave it running otherwise. I don't see it being a problem myself. It just doesn't bother me. I know it bothers some people, and maybe we're just different. I know some people are concerned about security, but if that is a concern, then really you're not necessarily facing a better deal than you are with any other client. Discord, for example, seems to be pretty happy to collect information off you. Steam itself has had its own breaches and breaks. If you're a gamer and you're buying stuff on various shops or even Steam, you're not exactly trusting your details to perfectly secure companies. I mean, that's a fantasy. There's no such companies anymore. You have to just be conscious and careful of where your details go. And perhaps for some of you, Epic is a step too far, but it's not for me. Now, some other people have pointed out that the Epic Store doesn't currently support refunds. It doesn't have as much customer service. What else was being complained about? Community reviews, message boards. Honestly, I could not give a toss about those two. It also, some people are complaining that there's a GD, I can't remember, the European privacy rights issues. That is an issue maybe for some people. It doesn't comply according to some. I've also seen counter arguments saying that whole privacy requirement out of the EU is not always very easy to interpret. and that the it's not common for many websites to not exactly comply with the privacy requirements there. And wow, you know, again, that's a choice you've got to make. I kind of yeah, I kind of agree with this. If it's a good game, people will buy it regardless of the launcher. Every time you see a boycott anything group, you see lots of them on Steam, guarantee that a bunch of the people in the group are playing the game they're promising to boycott. So I hope everyone will, that's it, GDPR. I hope everyone will consider giving it a giving the Epic launcher a chance. I think it's fine. I like it. I think Satisfactory itself is going to be great. I really think that Steam could do with a shake-up. You know, I just don't. I think Valve have been resting on their laurels for a very long time. They don't need to release games. They can just get a few bits and bobs out now and then just soak in the fat cash, the 30% of developers' work they soak just for having a large user base. That's it. The store page is not amazing. Their support for devs is not amazing. They just have a very large community. That's why they justify the 30%. So having some competition and supporting some competition is, I think, a good idea. I mean, we don't want single monopolies. It's bad for devs. It's going to be bad for us. Let's get some other people out there doing some cool work. So I hope you found my little rant interesting. I'm looking forward to Satisfactory. I hope you are as well. If you aren't, let me know in the comments below. Feel free to like or dislike or subscribe or unsubscribe. My opinion's my opinion. And you've got one too, I'm sure. Until next time, I've been TinyPirate. Good night.